Joe Milton will start the second preseason game for the Cowboys, which means Dak Prescott's not going to play at all. We'll tell you if that's a mistake or not next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And on today's show, we are getting you ready for the Cowboys' Week 2 preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to say this is a big preseason game because there's no such thing.
Yeah.
But it does feel like this is a game the Cowboys need to play much better than they did last week.
I certainly feel like we as fans would like to feel more confident about the team coming out of the game. I just feel like the Rams game and kind of just left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. So I agree. Like, I do think that this is, not important. I think you're right. It's not quite the right word, but just something that needs to, incite some confidence in the Cowboys fandom, some competence out there. It's going to be tough because obviously the Cowboys are again kind of playing or seemingly resting a good majority of their starters. We'll talk about a little bit who's playing, but I mean, the fact that Dak's not playing, the fact that they specifically said that Booker is going to play, I would assume means that maybe not the rest of the offensive line.
No, probably not. Although he is a first-round pick that didn't play last week, so I don't think we'll see Tyler Smith. But would you be surprised if we see like Cooper Beebe and Terrence Steele out there?
I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I guess at this point I wouldn't be shocked at anything unless Dak actually did trot out there. That would be shocking. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, where we are, is that we're not really sure who's going to be even playing in the game. So it's kind of even hard to gauge our expectations, because if it's going to be similar to what it was last week against the Rams, you're still seeing the kind of bottom half of the roster. I'm hoping to see, a trickle in of hopefully, 6 to a half, 6 to a dozen, more top end players participating in this game than what we saw last week.
So Brian Schottenheimer did announce that Joe Milton will be starting this game, which is not a big surprise. I think they want to give him as many snaps as possible to evaluate him. But the bigger story is that Dak Prescott is not going to play this game. He's not coming off the bench for Joe Milton, just which likely means, and again, this could change, but generally teams don't play anybody in that final preseason game, which means Dak Prescott's not going to take a single snap in the preseason. And I don't want to say that's a problem, but it's interesting considering how much time Dak missed at the end of last year. No preseason. You're going to throw him right into, against the Eagles in week 1. It's a bold choice here.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it's noteworthy, right? And we're obviously leaving the open that listen, they're still kind of figuring out this 3 preseason, scrimmage schedule that's been the kind of the regular for the last few years. Maybe they do end up playing more players in the third game, who knows? But traditionally they have it, and it makes sense that they wouldn't, because we're starting to get closer to the regular season. So,
well, and most teams, like, as soon as this preseason game is over, they start game planning for week 1, and it's guys at the very back end of the roster, and they use basically the next 2 weeks to get ready for week 1.
Yeah, so it just feels like this is the last opportunity for us to kind of see whoever is going to step on the preseason field. Now, I mean, I'm not shocked that Dak didn't get any preseason snaps. I don't think it's outrageous, but it certainly is eye-opening because of all the reasons you just laid out. Like, he didn't get to play a ton last season. He didn't get he didn't finish the season, so it's been a long time since he's been on a football field, which the game is being played. And yeah, the opponent week 1 is a difficult one to kind of try to step into your stride a little bit. It's the defending Super Bowl champions who specifically have a very difficult defense to go against. So I think it's a tall order. Obviously, Dak was involved in this decision, and I wonder how he feels about it, to be honest. But at the same time, there's a reason he didn't finish the season last year, and maybe that reason is why you feel like you don't want to play him in the preseason. So I certainly see it both ways, but I also think it's certainly noteworthy that a decision has been made.
We're starting to see more teams around the NFL at least give their starting quarterback some reps. Like Patrick Mahomes played last week. He's going to play this week. Andy Reid is like adamant in making sure that his starting quarterback plays. Joe Burrow played multiple series last week against Philadelphia. So I do think this is becoming a trend again. But Dak Prescott has not thrown a pass in the preseason since 2019. Like, it's been a while, and maybe this is his decision a little bit. Like, he doesn't want to. I know that he's talked publicly that he does, but I don't know if we always should believe that's right.
Yeah.
But it's clear that they feel like he's going to be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why it's not surprising, is because, it's been over 5 years, 6 years since we've seen Dak take a preseason snap. We just thought that maybe this year would be different because he's healthy from an injury. So why not give him the opportunity to kind of take some snaps and get back into the swing of things before you face, like I said, the Super Bowl champions on a Thursday week 1 game. So it certainly isn't the end of the world, but it is certainly noteworthy as well.
All right, Joe Milton, week 2 of the preseason. I don't want to say this is a big game, but it kind of is for Joe Milton. Like, this is if he performs poorly again, then I think we are having conversations about like, hey, can he be a viable backup quarterback for you this year? I expect that he's going to play much better. I think you saw it in the second half last week. He calmed down a little bit, but it's a big spot for Milton.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is, like, where is he on his trajectory? To kind of one more peek at it, and I think hopefully a better peek, right? Like, I mean, I even think that preseason game, like, if I were to lay out his performances, like, for what I've seen in training camp versus through what we saw last week in that preseason game, that preseason game had to be one of the worst performances I've seen him make so far. So sure. I do think that there was a bad showing aspect of this where he was a little bit too wound up. So I do want to see him get out there and, kind of have an opportunity to kind of get into the rhythm of things. He'll be playing at home, although I don't know that matters much to Joe Milton, who hasn't played in Arlington Stadium before, or in Texas Stadium. No, I'm sorry, AT&T Stadium. I'm going to get it right one of these.
It took you a couple times. You're good.
Yeah. But I think, the issue is that what we talked about, like, we're on a weird timeline, right? Where we kind of need to figure out, is he even like going to be a guy that we can, count on as quarterback too? And if not, then we kind of need to make a decision on what the next plan is. Or is the plan, hey, we're going to lean in with these two guys in some combination of Will Grier and Joe Milton. And then until Joe Milton kind of crosses the threshold of being trustworthy enough to be the backup quarterback, we're just going to rely on Will Grier to kind of get us out of any game in which Dak is nicked up. And if Dak gets hurt, long term, hopefully not, then I think that's when you probably would have to engage in quarterback conversations with a street free agent or potentially trading for someone like Kirk Cousins. I think that's, maybe you don't.
My stomach just churned when you talk about trading for Kirk Cousins.
Well, and maybe that's why, right? Maybe the thing is that you don't want to have to plan for that kind of disaster because, it impedes your ability to actually develop a backup quarterback if you're constantly having to, only have high floor, QB2s. You need to be able to develop these guys, and you don't get a ton of snaps. So if you're only giving all your snaps to QB1 and then occasionally to QB2, it probably is better to get that guy to be a developmental guy that you can grow into being a QB2, and then maybe see if he can grow beyond that.
All right, Landon, let's talk about some players that really need to step up in week 2 of the preseason, including Joe Milton. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's their 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. My family, we linked all of our accounts to Monarch, and we immediately found a couple subscriptions that we didn't even know that we had. We didn't know that we were using. Canceling those alone is saving us money every single month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are previewing the Cowboys Week 2 matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. We're not really talking about the Ravens. We're just talking about guys that we want to see. Who are some guys that need to step up here, Landon?
Well, I do think that we need to see a little bit better pad level, generally speaking, from the defensive line, right? But specifically, two guys that need to play better are Mozzie Smith, obviously, and Jay Toya, right? The two guys that the Cowboys are counting on this year to be part of their run defense. And, I think Mozzie has had an up and down camp. I mean, I don't think he's had a bad camp, but I think the fact that it's up and down is enough to be disappointing. I think that's where we are. And I think folks are having a hard time kind of calibrating where he is in his game because, when you're a first round pick, either you're worth a first round pick or you're a completely worthless human being. You shouldn't even be on an NFL team. So
there is no middle ground here.
There's no middle ground, right?
And honestly, that's part of the problem is because of the success of the Cowboys drafting, right? Like when you draft all of these all pro players, and they just really haven't had very many guys that are in the middle. We don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah, I think Mozzie is good enough to be a role player in the NFL, but or borderline starter if he can find some consistency.
Just not a first round player. Yeah, that's all.
That's right. So I think but I still think he even talked about it after the game that he needs to play better. He understands the expectations, and that's great. And honestly, it was good to hear from him, and I appreciated it. But at the same time, we also want to see him play better. He needs to come out here in especially these situations where he's probably not even playing competition that he's going to be playing, especially week 1. So he needs to play with some consistency. He needs to work on making sure that he's got his technique more consistent so that by the time the regular season, when the bullets are really flying, he's able to kind of do that. And Toya, obviously, he's a rookie on a different kind of scale, on a different kind of track, but same sort of issue, right? Well, we need to see him anchor down a little bit better. He just needs to kind of get lower and get his pad level down. And I think that these guys are going to be okay, but we, those guys need to bounce back, especially since they're not likely to be playing a level of talent that is, going to be what they're seeing week to week. It's probably a tier lower.
All right, I'm going to give you another one. I want to see a defensive back step up and ease some of our concerns about the secondary. You name the name, whether it's Zion Childress, Andrew Booth, Keemon Hall, Izzy Makamu, just have one of these guys, if they could put together a really strong game and that way we come out of this preseason thinking, okay, hey, if they have to break glass to use this guy, we feel fine. Right now, I don't. Like that third cornerback spot, whether it is Hall or Childress or Booth, makes you feel really uneasy until Trevon Diggs gets back.
Yeah, I mean, I think really, the outside guys. I think because honestly, I wanted to talk about slots in the next segment because I think that's the unsettled position that we most need to see.
We'll save that. Yeah, we'll get to that one. Yeah,
we'll get to that. But I do think as far as guys that need to step up and that bounce back, the outside guys are the ones that we need to see that from because look, we're not. I don't know how much we'll see of Deron Bland. I don't know how much we're going to see of Elam because at this point, Elam's a starting corner, and so you kind of make sure that he gets through the games healthy. So it's going to be a lot of Troy Pride. It's going to be a lot of Bland. Not Bland, of Booth. And so I just think you need to see those guys kind of, and we've seen them be kind of up and down a little bit, right? So I just need to see another solid performance from them. And I also don't even think that Booth was like so terrible in the first game, but it's just that the pass defense overall was bad. Right? Because and a part of that was a lack of pass rush where it needed to be. So it's the cornerbacks as well, but the entirety of the pass defense needs to just be better, whether that's increased pressure, whether that's longer, more stickiness on the back end. It's got to be a little bit of both, right?
Can I also say I want to see the coaches be better, because I didn't think Brian Schottenheimer called a great game. I mean, obviously he was doing things to try to let Milton throw the ball and get into the rhythm, and that never happened, right? And honestly, I think it hurt their offense a little bit. I want to see them be a little bit more balanced. I want to see the coaching staff put these guys in positions where they can succeed. And I just don't think we saw that last week.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's tough when you're serving multiple masters, but you're not wrong. Like they need to kind of you can't just be evaluating Joe Milton. Like, there's a lot of these other guys. And one of the other groups that I wanted to talk about that needs to kind of step up, and this isn't really a group as much as a concept, is that the Cowboys run game. The Cowboys run game in general. Game. I just want to see it, see more of it, see it continue. And I think that it's not that the Cowboys ran the ball poorly. I feel like early in the game, they just didn't run the ball very much at all.
They didn't have a single carry in the first half.
So that's
sorry, first quarter.
Yeah. I just need to see more of it, just to kind of, especially now that Tyler Booker's out there, we just need to see more in the run game to kind of know how to feel about it. We have people asking us all the time, like how do you think the run game looked in the preseason game? And it's like, it's hard to evaluate, man. We only got like a handful of carries with any offensive linemen that are probably going to be around on the team, and not very many running backs. So more Phil Mafah. Like I hope Jaden Blue and these other guys get an opportunity to play. I'm hoping Javonte Williams will get some snaps, and we'll get to see him. So definitely need to see a bounce back from the run game, and not really a bounce back, just opportunities for the run game.
Yeah, this guy doesn't need to bounce back, because I think he played pretty well, but I just want to see more of Nate Thomas at left tackle.
Yeah.
Again, Tyler Guyton's not going to play in this game, and I think we're still trending towards Tyler Guyton missing week 1, maybe week 2. But we'll see. I mean, he's been on the sideline, but he hasn't practiced in a couple of weeks now. But I just want to see Thomas not only go out there and play more snaps, because he just has not played a lot of snaps in the NFL. I think he also needs to work on his conditioning. It's not so much that I think he's out of shape, but it's going from a guy that's getting, 5 or 6 snaps and then you get a break. And then like what we saw last week where he played 9 snaps and then he's done. If he's going to play in week 1 against Philly, like you're hoping that he's going to be able to be out there for 55, 60 offensive snaps. He's got to be ready to do that. And this is a good way to kind of ramp him up to do that.
Yeah, this is a great point, because but it's also a very delicate balance, right? Because you really can't lose Nate Thomas right now. So you want to play him a ton, because yes, he needs to get through he needs to learn the endurance of getting through an NFL game. He hasn't played a full game of football in over 2 years. He needs to kind of work through it, but you also have to be careful with him and safe. So it's a tough balance, right?
To me, I would just play him the whole first half, maybe even a series into the third quarter.
Sure.
And this is why you have Awesome Richards, and you sign Jerron Christian, and you have Lyle Collins. Not that Lyle would be a left tackle, but you have options. This is a guy that just needs development. And if you go into into week 1 and he has 30 total snaps in the preseason, not going to feel great about it, regardless of how well he's played on those snaps.
Yeah, I think he's looked good enough that you feel okay about him going out there. Certainly better than you would just a sight unseen, but we also need to see him do it longer and do it more often. Well, so that's a huge part of this.
Look at Mozzie Smith, right? We talk about how we think Mozzie Smith can be really good at the beginning of games, and then he starts to wear down. I wonder if that's going to be a case for someone like Nate Thomas, who again has not played a full game in several years now. So keep an eye out for him. All right, let's talk about some positions that are unsettled that we'd like to see get solved over the weekend. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, Landon and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. And to kick it off, they've dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team each week is eliminated until there's only one team left standing. And with the season right around the corner, now is the time to gather up your league mates and give this new game mode a try. And if you're more into the classics, you can still go do that. You can go play in head-to-head private leagues, or you can join a public league. So stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Football Show with hosts Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. Listen every day to prep for your fantasy draft and become the most informed manager so you can take home your league trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, let's talk about some positions that are unsettled here. So, what are you looking to see from the slot corner one we mentioned and a couple others here?
Yeah, who's out there playing? How are they looking? How are they being used? I think these are all interesting questions to have about the slot specifically. I just think that it's these all three of these guys that are potentially in the running for this. And again, outside of Bland, right? Like if you feel like the best configuration until you get Diggs back, or at least one more corner, is having Bland on the outside and then trying these guys inside, right? Because you just want to feel solid about the guys on the outside, right? And so, but these are also three guys who are likely to be playing in this preseason game, right? McCool played last game a whole bunch. Keemon Hall is certainly eligible to be playing this game, and Childress is literally here to do this kind of thing. So I think that you're going to see a whole bunch of these guys. It's going to be interesting to see how they get used. And again, like I think they are all kind of slightly different, and how they will, what their strengths and weaknesses are very likely to be kind of wildly different, just because they're very different body types and very different athletes. So I'm interested kind of we know who McCool is. We've seen a lot of Keemon Hall. I'm interested to see a little bit more in this game. Childress is really kind of the wild card of this group more than any other, the kind of the unknown, right, of exactly what we're getting there. I'd like to just see him a little bit more. And again, the endurance thing you mentioned, right? Like these guys are going to, I want to see how they kind of play continuously through a whole half, a whole, 3/4, however long these guys are out there on the field.
I also want to mention the running back position. Like this is one that I'm still really interested to see what happens, because we saw Phil Mafah. He played well last week. Deuce Vaughn, I'm sure, is going to play more snaps. He's been, 2 weeks removed from the hamstring injury. We also, I think we're going to get some Miles Sanders this week. Maybe. Probably not Jaden Blue. He just didn't practice all week. My guess is they're going to be safe with him. We'll see. I would like some more clarity at the running back position.
Yeah, and again, I think Mafah's performance last week kind of muddied the picture, if anything, like just because now it's like, oh, do we need to consider him in kind of this mix? And then, next thing you know, after that game, we start seeing pictures and videos of Mafah working with special teams coaches after practice. So maybe they're trying, and that's another point I want to bring up actually, is again, with all these positions, don't just pay attention to when they're on offense and defense. Pay attention to who's on these special teams units, because this is not something that you would normally pay attention to during the regular season. You wouldn't necessarily be pausing the broadcast to kind of check out the numbers on the line of folks on the kickoff team. But I think it's actually important in this game specifically to do that, because I think you're getting a kind of dress rehearsal for these folks that they want to see if you're good enough to be a special teams player, thereby kind of being put on the roster. So pay special attention there. Like, which one of these running backs is running down to make a tackle? Another position we should talk about real quick. wide receiver 4 is a position that isn't necessarily settled on this
Nope.
team. And we don't have to call it wide receiver 4 or 3, the Tolbert Mingo duo specifically, and then how the Flanoy and the rest of the down roster guys all kind of stack out, right? Because we know that
Flanoy, Holden, Jalen Brooks, all those guys, Jalen Moreno Cropper. I'm just
I think that, it's like, I mean, which one of these is going to be next year's Jalen Moreno Cropper, right? Like,
well, I mean, Cropper has had a couple good weeks at camp, but the problem is he's just going to have such an uphill fight to get on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of upside at that point there, right? I think he kind of is who he is at this point. I think you could still convince yourself that Flanoy can still grow a little bit. He's a young player. I mean, not that all these guys aren't young, but that's just kind of how the way the NFL, commodity of players works. Like the unknown kind of just presents a upside that you don't know about. So I think, for me, it's the Mingo and Tolbert aspect of this. Like, which one of these guys is able to kind of shine? And I think that both of these guys are likely on the roster. I think the question is, like, who are they going to turn to first when it's time to put out a non-Turpin wide receiver on the field in a 3 wide receiver set? Is it Mingo? Is it Tolbert? Is it both of them? Are they kind of splitting this job a little bit 50-50? Because those two are the guys with the closest body set, so you want to see how they're competing with each other in this game.
Yeah, and not only that, but like I want to see who ends up becoming like the third receiver in like goal line work, or like in the high red zone, or third downs. Is it Tolbert working out of the slot? Is it Mingo working on the outside and CD in the slot? Like, I think that's going to tell you a lot about who they really trust. I'm with you. I think both these guys are going to play a lot of snaps during the regular season, but curious to see what that rotation looks like in week 1. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. He is Landon McCool. I am Marcus Mosher, and we will see you right back here on Saturday night.